Okay folks, it's another video from me. This is video number 2. The subject matter of this video is what I'm going to call the meritocracy, and I'll elaborate on that as I speak, and also gaslighting. Now, I didn't know what gaslighting was. I used to hear that word and I thought, what's gaslighting? And I looked it up on Wikipedia and I got to the bottom of it, this gaslighting phenomena. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which a person or group covertly sows seeds of doubt in a targeted individual, or dare I say individuals, making them question their own memory, perception or judgment, often evoking in them cognitive dissonance and other changes such as low self-esteem, using denial, misdirection, contradiction and misinformation. Gaslighting involves attempts to destabilise the victim and delegitimise the victim's beliefs. What a fabulous thing to talk about in the current world, where essentially this community has been polarised, split down the middle. One group reckon that they know, reckon that they're awake. I reckon I'm in that group, although I'm certain that the awakening process has got a long way to go, and I've no arrogance about that at all. I thought I was down the rabbit hole already before this whole hoo-ha, and discovered I was just standing in the foyer of the rabbit hole. And I've gone so much further in the last month that it's a cross between exhilarating and terrifying. So yeah, the two words, meritocracy and gaslighting. So the meritocracy was created post-aristocracy, I would say. The aristocracy, we all know what that means. It's a group of people who are very, very special just because of who their father was. And in some cases their mother. But mostly who the father was, the bloodline. Doesn't matter if I'm as dumb as a short plank. If I'm some great person's son, that makes me special, and that gives me a right to, lop people's heads off and spill blood at will. Then came the meritocracy. The meritocracy was this new thing, relatively new anyway, whereby we get value and we're allowed to speak and be heard and have authority based on what we know, based on our education, based on what degree we've got. If I'm a lawyer, I learn the language of lawyers, and no one's allowed to speak the language of lawyers other than the lawyer. If I'm a doctor, I just have a right to know, and no one else has a right to know. So I'm going to go back, I don't know, way back in the 90s, there was a documentary that I remember seeing on television about this new thing that was around the corner called the information superhighway. It was 60 minutes, it was one of those things. I watched it and I remember thinking, information superhighway, why do we need that? I don't understand. Oh well, whatever. Well, it turns out we all know what the information superhighway was. It came. And guess what the information superhighway gave us? It gave us all the right to know. It did. At first, of course, the internet was a bit chaotic, but then Google came along and sorted everything out so that we could find what we were looking for. We could find scholarly documents. We could listen to fabulous scientists who were speaking out against what the mainstream practices were, whether they were doctors or whatever, chemists. We actually had a right to know, and those who had control over everything didn't like that very much. So they started inventing terms like, oh, you're just a Google expert. Well, sorry guys, I'm a Google expert, and I'm allowed to be, except for the fact that Google kind of changed the goalposts a little bit and changed their algorithms and delisted authoritative websites on holistic health and made it harder to find real information. So the playing field, it was too level and it didn't work for them. Nonetheless, if I turn off the television, I sit up late at night, I read scholarly documents, I listen to extremely authoritative medicos, all different types of professionals from the heartland. I'm not talking about Unicornsville or Fairyland. I'm talking about people who put everything on the line. People of great and towering integrity who woke up to a truth about our world and notwithstanding their medical education and the debt that they'd incurred to get that medical education, they walked. They walked across to the other side and they started to speak. Now, these people are everywhere. The internet, YouTube is brimming with these people. But these people are never spoken about on the mainstream media. The sock puppets don't share their information. And why is that? Get back to gaslighting, don't we? Because I'm going to give all of my fellow man, I think, a deserved amount of credit. I think everyone has that voice. The one that I spoke about in my previous video, and I'll elucidate quickly here. It's that part of us that's innocent, uneducated, and just knows some things. It's that little voice that knew that if the aeroplane flew into the side of the Twin Tower, it was supposed to fall off to the side, and it didn't. Well, guess what happened? There were a group of professionals that got together, engineers, architects, demolition experts, telecommunication experts. They all got together and they formulated a group online called the Journal of 9/11 Studies. And they wrote papers, white papers. These weren't hippies. These weren't fringe dwellers. They were ordinary, highly credentialed people from the meritocracy who knew that what they were seeing wasn't the truth. Did the mainstream media report them? Did it do stories on them? No, it didn't. So what I'm here to say to you people is, when those people say to you, when you're doing the research, oh, you're just a Google expert, sorry, you're allowed. You are allowed to be a Google expert. The information is there and it's easy to find. Okay? So we're being gaslit. We're being gaslighted. I'm not sure what the right term is, by the mainstream media. And this is the way in, I should say, or maybe it's the way out. It's the way out of that structure of belief, where we all arrive at a place similar to the one I've arrived at, where I'm absolutely certain, without any doubt, no doubt whatsoever, that not a single narrative that comes from the mainstream media is the truth, without exception. Now, you might see that as an extreme view, and you might have to do a lot more work to arrive at that place. Or maybe you won't. It's none of my business, I guess. But the meritocracy, guys, I'm here to tell you, it's been busted. It's been busted wide open. You are allowed to know. I have 2 testimonials that I'm going to share with you, both involving the medical profession. About a couple of years ago, I had a scaly lesion on my chest, about here somewhere. It wouldn't go away. It was dry and itchy, and I scratched it for months, 6, 8, 10 months, I don't know, a long time. It reached a point where I thought, oh, I better go to the dermatologist. I better have it looked at, make sure it's not a basal cell carcinoma or something like that. So I went into the surgery of the dermatologist, who happened also to be a member of my family. And I shared my little thing, and my dear dermatologist got her little binocular thingy. She flipped them down over her eyes and had a look and said, oh, goodness me, no, it's not a basal cell carcinoma. It's just some sort of dermatitis. And she reached for her prescription pad, and of course I asked a question straight away. I'm a question asker. Of course I asked a question that I knew the answer to. I said to her, so is this cortisone cream that you're going to give me going to heal my dermatitis? Because I know cortisone cream can't heal anything. All it can do is make you stop itching. And my dear family member said, oh, Peter, I know you. You scratch it, don't you? She rolled her eyes and patronized me with her also knowing meritocracy attitude. I'm the doctor and you're not. I know and you don't. And I said to her, yes, I do scratch it. I do. So she said, just take the cortisone cream. It will break the cycle and it will be cleared up in 6 weeks. So, not wanting to have a domestic in the doctor's surgery, I took the prescription and I left. Of course, I threw it in the first garbage bin that I happened upon as I walked out the door. And guess what I did, guys? I stopped fucking scratching it. And guess what? It was gone in 6 weeks. So you see, my dermatologist here wasn't being bad or wasn't a bad person, but this is how the system within which we live treats us. It patronizes us. It condescends to us. It doesn't give us options. Wouldn't it have been better for her to say, look, there are 2 ways of looking at this. Maybe you can stop scratching it, or maybe you can take the cortisone cream. So I arrived home, and what did I do to stop scratching? And I put a bloody Band-Aid on the lesion, and I changed it regularly, and guess what? It was gone in 6 weeks. So this kind of thing happens at every level. It happens when we watch the news. Every story that we're given, absolutely without doubt, I personally have come to the realization is false, even if the overarching story is the truth. The narrative that supports it is false. So, where does this leave us? It leaves us with the realization, and this is what I want to tell people, is that, or share with people, is that you are allowed to ask questions. You are allowed to get information, authoritative, credible information, and you are allowed to make decisions based on that information. Okay, and look, if you turn off the television, you'll discover that the internet, that place where all of the information is just brimming with stories that are diametrically opposed to the ones that we're given by government, by corporates, and by the media. So when we start asking questions and when we start making discoveries, as I did many years ago, what happens is that structure of belief starts to crumble, falls down. And for a little while we feel naked and exposed because we built that structure, after all, to make us feel safe, didn't we? But we're at a time right now where there's no safe. There's no safe. There's no hiding out in the premises anymore. We have to embrace a new way of looking at the world. We have to embrace our authority. We have to embrace our right to know. We are allowed to know. If there's one message I'm trying to communicate in this video, it's that you are allowed to know. You are allowed to have a view that is the opposite to the view of your doctor. You're allowed to have a view that's the opposite, diametrically opposed view of the information given to you by Tracy Grimshaw, the sock puppet from the I didn't even know the name of her show, Current Affair or something. And then when we do start making discoveries, the questions that we ask, we discover that there was a man in the 1940s named Royal Raymond Rife. He was so famous that there was front page news stories about him in the newspapers of San Diego. Royal Raymond Rife. Well, Royal Rife had a 100% success rate in healing people with cancer back in the 1940s. You might ask yourself when you discover about this man, why didn't I know this? Why didn't the mainstream media tell me about this fabulous person? You might dig a little further and you might discover Louis Pasteur. We all thought that he was a great French scientist, didn't we? Well, you might discover that he has been completely discredited as a plagiarist and a fraud, and that the only thing that he was really good at was ingratiating himself to the emperor, and that he stole the work of other people, and that his germ theory, upon which the whole of pharmaceutical medicine rests, is a falsehood, and verifiably and demonstrably so. You may not believe me now because you haven't done the research that I've done, but I have. And as I said, I haven't done this research on the fringes. I've done it in the heartland. You might discover Wilhelm Reich. Same thing. Died penniless. What about, we all know about Nikola Tesla, and Elon Musk has stolen, misappropriated, I would say, his name, because Nikola Tesla would most certainly not have been in any way associated with the vehicles of Tesla. No more sustainable, by the way, if we really look into it, no more sustainable than burning coal. And that's a longer conversation. And you might disagree, that's fine. So, we're being gaslit, people. You all are. And again, it gets back to my message from my last video. You are allowed to know, you are allowed to ask questions, and when you ask those questions, I can promise you, from my 30 years of experience of having the TV off, I can promise you that you will not receive any of the right answers, ever, from the mainstream media. Not ever. Okay? So, listen to yourself. I'm going to put a whole bunch of links below this video for further research. Listen to people. Listen to Dr. Suzanne Humphries, a dedicated career professional kidney specialist, a nephrologist, a kidney specialist, who threw away a career. She threw away a lucrative income when she discovered some truths about the medical profession that didn't sit right for her. You look her up and you'll find that she's labelled as a quack. My question to you is, why would a brilliant, dedicated, integrity human being throw away her entire livelihood for the 500 books that she sold since she crossed the floor to the other side? No, folks. I'm going with integrity. That's what I'm going. And most often the people with integrity that truly pursue the truth, most often, I would say always, they end up discredited and pushed to the fringe. So we're in a time of awakening, and I want people to know that they're allowed to know, and they're allowed to ask, and they're allowed to get their own questions. The meritocracy, as we've known it, is busted. It has been busted. And when everyone yells conspiracy theorist at you, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I arrive at places based on research where I come to the 100% conclusion that I'm not being given the correct information, and that therefore there must be some larger and wider agenda. It's not a conspiracy theorist. It's a fact finder, is what I am. And you're allowed to be one too. You are allowed to be one. But in order to be one, you must turn off the television and stop listening to the radio, as I have done. Thank you, my friends.